Appearance on Dion's Daily Dose does not imply endorsement from or by any candidate or guest. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by Dion Bergeron or Dion's Daily Dose are his own and do not represent the views, thoughts, and opinions of any guest. Material and information presented is for general information purposes only. The Dion's Daily Dose name in all forms and abbreviations are the property of its owners, and its use does not imply endorsement of or opposition to any specific organization, product, or service. If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Dion's Daily Dose.
All right. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. So today I'm going to do a little more local focus. I hope everybody's having a good evening. There's some stuff going on, of course. But I think so I attend a breakfast club. I've mentioned it before, the 463 GOP Club. And it's, in my opinion, it's open to the public. You can join, though, if you want to become a member. It's not that expensive. And in my opinion, it's a lot more interesting than some of the other stuff that's going on. I had an opportunity to ask one of our state reps regarding a little of the legislation that's coming up, which I'm going to cover with you here. But before we get started on that, I'm going to show you guys the interpretation from the Indiana Capitol Chronicle about the upcoming legislative session, and I found it interesting. There we go. Okay, so it's a commentary, but there's both some good information here, and it's the media. It's obviously has a slant. As an aside, before we get started on that, I hope you guys are not too attached to this current setup, because not only is it undergoing flux, but we may be changing a lot of stuff around here soon. So it's in the process of. But back to the fun stuff. Okay, so it says here, be warned, the 2025 legislative session has a ridiculously heavy agenda. This is from Nikki Kelly. It says here, as I head into covering my 26th regular legislative session, I have never seen such a behemoth load of major issues on the agenda. The number of fiscal decisions to be made is staggering. Then add in major topics such as healthcare costs, childcare needs, and utility proposals, and it could be one of the more momentous I have covered in my career. With Organization Day on Tuesday, lawmakers will gather and be sworn for the official start of session. Let's break down the big topics. The budget. Every 2 years, and I learned this when I ran, every 2 years, the General Assembly crafts a biennial budget. The $44.5 billion spending plan covers everything from public safety and education funding to Medicaid and public health. A revenue forecast is set for December 18th, but Indiana's economy has cooled since its pandemic days. That means not a lot of new money will be available. The biggest budget discussion, The biggest budget discussion this year, talking about 2025, will likely be on Medicaid, which provides health care for the poor. Its explosive growth is eating up the rest of the state budget. In fact, education is no longer more than half of state spending because of the growth in that sector. Lawmakers are looking for ways to curb the increases. Education funding will likely hinge partially on the Medicaid issue. But if I were traditional Indiana public schools, I wouldn't expect more than a small increase each year. Now, interestingly enough, this predates the bill that was proposed to completely eliminate IPS, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Lawmakers could also authorize universal private school vouchers, which sounds more expansive than it really is. That's because last year they increased the income guidelines so high that the program already reaches more than 95% of the population. Shouldn't it? I mean, shouldn't everyone have that option? I know there are people out there that are opposed to charter schools, and I'll admit, I don't know as much about them as I probably should. But school choice is a very, very important issue. And in my opinion, having options is good. The growing cost of the voucher program, expected to be about $600 million in fiscal year 2025, will likely continue its ascent. Lawmakers will also decide what happens to major public health investments from 2 years ago. All 92 counties signed on to the initiative, which started with $75 million and then rose to $150 million in fiscal year 2025. Will they keep that number the same, reduce it, or increase it? 2 years ago, the legislature gave an unprecedented amount of money to the Indiana Economic Development Corporation. It went beyond its typical budget and incentive programs and received a $500 million deal closing fund, a $500 million round of regional development grants, and a $150 million land acquisition fund. But there has been pushback against IEDC's focus on large corporations and wild spending on the Boone County Innovation Park, which still has only one tenant. Then it goes into property taxes will be a point of focus. And absolutely, incoming Governor Mike Braun made a major property tax, made a major property tax cut a priority of his campaign. It was just weird. And while lawmakers have been considering possible tax changes, they don't seem as excited for a massive overhaul. No, why would they be? They like all that money. And that's what it comes down to, guys. These people are not going to give the money up willingly. It's not going to happen. Property taxes provide local government funding, and any large cuts will also mean reduced services. 2 years ago, lawmakers seemed set on cutting state taxes, but that talk has cooled. A 2-year task force on tax reform is meeting next week to finalize recommendations. Healthcare. Braun has also championed a bold agenda to control healthcare costs, but many of the items on his wish list have struggled in earlier sessions. In the past, GOP lawmakers have been content with transparency efforts, but there isn't much left on that front, and it remains to be seen if the GA is willing to be more aggressive with insurance companies, hospitals, pharmacy benefit managers, and more. And I agree with that. Utilities. If you have been reading our content, you won't be surprised to know the issue of utility costs will also be addressed. Many Republicans, including Braun, believe the effort by companies to move away from coal and towards renewables has spiked costs for ratepayers. Yeah. A recent Attorney General opinion pressured the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to block these changes, and lawmakers are crafting bills behind the scenes to do so themselves. When you tell an energy company that the way that they're producing energy is not okay, and they have to switch to something else, dude, the costs are going to go up. It costs money to change. And we can go back and forth on how effective, how awesome, how useful, good, great, whatever renewables are. But the fact is, coal, at least in Northwest Indiana, NIPSCO, is the cheapest. That's how it's been done for long as I've been alive. And that's how it's going to continue, or would have, until all the laws came down saying, oh, no, that's not okay. You need to make major changes. So we can say whether or not people believe these changed energy costs, these changed utility rates. The fact is, utility rates are going up and will continue to go up. Now, there's something very, very interesting that I'm going to tell you in just a few minutes regarding roads. Apparently, there is a plan, or it is current. I haven't been able to find the exact number, but apparently there's a plan to make every county initiate a wheel tax. You know how LaPorte County has that $25 wheel tax? Well, apparently plans are in place to make all of the counties do that. Why? Because there's not enough money for roads. That wheel tax money is going to go local. It's going to go local. It's going to go local. Why are our roads crap to begin with? What's wrong with the millions and millions, if not billions of dollars that is going into the roads from these so-called taxes, wheel tax, BMV, tax at the pump, the gas tax, all this other crap, right? We're getting taxed to death, and we're going to need a few more dollars. Indiana's road funding plan, instituted in 2018, has been hit by inflation and fuel mileage improvement, which means both the state and local governments have far more needs than revenue. Imagine that. A 2-year study of road funding needs is expected to have recommendations soon. It talks about childcare, blah, 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 and that's it. Okay. So my next gift to you is from a decidedly liberal source, WFYI in Indianapolis, Rachel Fredette. Here we go. The information contained herein is interesting, although the way that it's written, of course, is something we've seen many, many times. Let's see here. Jack says coal is the second largest export of Indiana and Illinois. Coal is also the largest product of airborne mercury. That's interesting. I did not know that about the mercury. I knew it was a huge export up here. And of course, with the legislators in both Washington and Indianapolis forcing NIPSCO to change from coal to other things, that's going to increase costs, guys. So it says here, legislation would dissolve IPS, which I mentioned before, 4 other school districts. Then charters take over. It says here, Indiana lawmakers have introduced a bill that would dissolve the state's largest public school district. House Bill 1136, authored by Representative Jake Teshka from North Liberty, right up the road, the neighboring district, proposes converting 50 schools in the Indianapolis Public Schools District into charter schools. Why? Due to enrollment shifts. 4 other school districts would also be disbanded under the legislation. Gary Community Schools, Tri-Township Consolidated Schools in LaPorte County, Union Schools southeast of Muncie, and Cannleton City Schools near the Kentucky border in Perry County. Interesting. The bill states that if more than 50% of students residing within a school district's boundaries were enrolled in schools not operated by the district as of October 1st of the previous year, the district must be dissolved. School districts' average daily enrollment is determined on that date annually. Oof. I don't know, guys. Let's go. If the bill is passed and signed into law by Braun, the process to dissolve all 5 school districts would begin in July. While Braun is a strong advocate for school choice and expanding options for private school attendance, he has not specifically emphasized charter schools in his agenda. This legislation is drawing local and national attention, with parents and pundits taking to social media to voice alarm or praise ahead of this week's start of the session. The bill, if approved, would require 68 public schools across the 5 districts to convert to charter schools by July 1st, 2028, according to the bill's fiscal impact report. Schools with the lowest scores on state assessments, such as iLearn and iRead 3, would transition first. Each school corporation's locally elected school boards would also be disbanded. HB 1136 establishes, quote, a new governing board, requirements, and procedures for each school. Each board would consist of 7 members, including appointees from the governor, local leadership, what does that mean, and the director of the Indiana Charter School Board. Here it is right here. Unlike traditional school boards, these members would not be elected by voters. Guys, I'm going to show you some, you know what? I'm just going to go ahead and drop it in here because this is all coming together. There's another huge, huge problem House Bill 1233, Local Government Reorganization Digest, provides that on January 1st, 2027, in all counties except Marion County, of course, because it seems like none of the laws seem to affect Marion County, the following occur. 1, township government is dissolved, gone. 2, the county executive. Who's the executive branch in LaPorte County? The commissioners, which, as we know, is currently inhabited by 2 rhinos and 1 actual liberty-minded individual. The county executive assumes the powers and duties of township trustees with regard to fire protection and emergency services, fire services. 3, an elected county trustee assumes the powers and duties of township trustees regarding township assistance. Specifies that on January 1st, 27, the following occur. 1, all fire protection districts and fire protection territories are dissolved. 2, fire services are provided in accordance with a county fire protection and emergency medical services plan, county plan. 3, the county emergency management director is responsible for the day-to-day operations of administering the county plan. Provides that all incorporated towns with a population of less than 1,000 are required, 1, to report not later than November 1st, 25, and every November 1st, every 4 years thereafter, as to the services provided for residents and operating costs. 2, to be dissolved by the county legislative body, that's the council, if the town's operating costs exceed the expenditures for delivery of services to residents. In other words, they are taking away our elected township trustees. As it sits right now, the township trustees are in charge of this stuff. They've been trying to get rid of the townships for a while now. Why? Why are they so against townships? Why do they want to take their power away, to get rid of them, to replace them? And in return, give us the county executive assumes the powers and duties with regard to fire protection and emergency services. Guys, have you guys seen the LaPorte County Courthouse in LaPorte lately? I took some pictures, which I have not uploaded, but I guess I could. If you go to the county courthouse and then the annex building, right? And you're looking at it from when you pull into the street there, you got the county courthouse on your left, and then the annex building on the right, or complex, whatever you want to call it. That little walkway there, if you look on the other side of that walkway, all of the railing there is in horrible, horrible condition. Now, I brought this up. Okay, so hold on. Let's see here. Jack says it is about time to get rid of township trustees. Most of trustee duties are actually done by county commissioners. Okay, let's talk about that. I'll be honest, I don't know that much about trustee stuff. It says here, township trustees were needed when all transportation was by horse. Now it's easy for people to travel from Westville to LaPorte. I do agree that it's easy to travel now, right? However, I want you to focus on the area that I'm talking about, right? That entire area is destroyed. It's in horrible, horrible condition. The county commissioners, specifically the president of the commission, dark helmet, whatever you want to call this individual, the president of the LaPorte County Commission has allegedly been on the maintenance department to actually get this done. What I do know for sure is that Justin Keel, county council member Justin Keel, 2 years ago when he started, he actually brought it up and created a work order that still has not been completed. 2 years. And you want to give these people more duties, more power? Really? Regardless of whether trustees are needed, not needed, good, bad, I will say this: Center Township trustee Lisa Pierzakowski, like, obviously this is a stellar, or I should say, way above the norm for the office. But Lisa is instrumental in that role. She helps so many people, gets resources for so many people. Our county executive can't even fix banisters in a 2-year period. No, the last thing we need to do is give these idiots more power. Going back, I should say, moving on. Let's go to. Hold on, I'll get to this in just a minute. But these school corporations will be impacted by HB 1136. If it says here under this bill, if more than 50% of students within a school corporation's boundaries attend schools not operated by the district, that the corporation has to be resolved by 2028 and its schools converted to charter schools. I don't know, man. That's a really, really, really huge step that I'm not sure. It goes on. If you guys want to, read the article and knock yourself out, but I'm going to move on because this one I had an opportunity to actually mention to a state representative and ask them if the House was intending to get on board with this. Let me show you what I'm talking about. If you're not familiar with Indiana Senate Bill 202, aka SB 202, summary. The Department of Agriculture provides that the Department of Agriculture is established as an executive agency, provides that the Lieutenant Governor serves as the Secretary of Rural Development, provides that the Lieutenant Governor is not the Secretary of Agriculture and Rural Development. As it stands currently, the Lieutenant Governor, Micah Beckwith, is indeed Secretary of Agriculture and Rural Development. It continues, removes the requirement that the Lieutenant Governor is responsible for the implementation of the department, provides that the governor shall appoint the members of certain boards, provides that the director of the department or the director's designee serves as an ex officio member of the Corn Marketing Council. In other words, the Republican establishment is so salty that we were able to get Micah Beckwith elected as the nominee for the Republican Party for Lieutenant Governor. They are so mad that Micah didn't kiss the ring. They are so mad that we circumvented their wishes that they are trying to gut the office of Lieutenant Governor. The next step, by the way, I expect will be that we no longer actually elect the Lieutenant Governor at all. I'm sure they'll try that. But just starting off, they're going to make sure that Micah Beckwith he is not actually able to do what we elected him to do. And I'll tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there are a number of people that have told me specifically that the only reason they voted for Braun was because Beckwith was the LG candidate. I asked the representative at the breakfast, hey, are you guys on board with this bullshit? And the response I got was, oh, that's probably not even going to make it out, which was not an answer, by the way. So it'll be interesting. I intend to pay very, very close attention to this. And it's gonna be interesting, guys, because this is not how it works. This is not what we expect. When we elect someone, we elect them to do the job that they were elected to do. And what does the legislature want to do? Gut the office. Why? Because it wasn't their pick. Okay, so once again, Indiana Capital Chronicle, we're going to a very liberal publication. But which remember that, right? This is a very left-leaning guy and publication. However, if you look at it, it is kind of entertaining. Blah, blah, blah. He's talking about his history. See, that was 30 years ago. Things have changed. The 2025 legislative session in Indiana begins this week. After the holidays have passed and the ceremonial and celebratory dust has settled from the most recent election, the big ideas start landing on paper and become introduced as bills. There are always some doozies, many of them comically looking for the problem to justify their own hilarious solutions. SB 166, Senate Bill 166 from Senator Spencer Deary provides that, quote, are you ready for this, guys? A person may not advertise a product containing marijuana or a marijuana business by any medium within the borders of Indiana. Any medium, huh? Good luck regulating the internet. True. The borders of Indiana, I usually refer to those as the state lines, which makes me think this bill might be the first step to Indiana's secession from the Union over pot. You guys know when I ran because, and one of my platforms was, it's time, guys. There's so much tax revenue that we're missing out on that's going to neighboring states. It really is quite silly. I'm for at minimum medical, but whatever. From Senator James Tome, Senate Bill 12 is even funnier. First, it defines the term squatter, a word that will never cease to make me giggle given the litany of its applicability. Before I go on, this is someone who's laughing about squatters, who's laughing about people who have had their home taken from them to give to someone who didn't earn it, who didn't buy it, who moved their ass in, and suddenly the law protects them. F that. Hell no. But in this bill, it defines the term as someone who is trespassing and occupying property without authorization and creates an expedited removal process. Trespassing is already a crime, but when we call it squatting, it's really bad. In this bill, law enforcement must remove a squatter within 48 hours. Trespassers apparently will continue to have more time. But these early bills aren't all funny. Far from it. Another transgender ban. House Bill 1041, filed by Rep. Michelle Davis, extends the original bad idea from her legislation in 22 that regulates the gender of participants in school athletics. That's how they phrase it. Regulates the gender of participants in school athletics. No, what it does is keep biological men from hurting biological women, or at best, performing male times all of that. You're a dude, man. That solution in search of a problem from 3 years ago is being extended to include college sports this year. And why not? Indiana is the home of the NCAA after all. What this year's HB 1041 does, yes, both bad bills cutely have the same number, is to effectively require the NCAA to ban transgender women, in other words, dudes, from women's sports. It requires 60 days notice be given if a transgender woman, a man, from another state plans to compete in Indiana. The apparent reason for the extreme amount of notice is to allow for the statutorily created grievance procedure to be fully pursued by the aggrieved. Okay, so someone applies, right? They fill out that they're going to compete in the NCAA, and the NCAA has 60 days. They have to notify them at least 60 days in advance and say, hey, you can't compete. Why? Because you're a dude. It's women's sports. So in case anyone out there was unclear about the Hoosier State's hostility toward transgender women after 2022, this new law is attempting to force the NCAA to implement these hostilities across the country and for what? blah, blah, blah. So listen to this, right? Actually, I want to. NCAA President Charlie Baker testified before the U.S. Senate's Judiciary Committee last month that of the 510,000 athletes at NCAA schools, fewer than 10 are transgender, as reported by Brooke Migden of The Hill. Fewer than 10. Okay, so they exist, which means there is the possibility that this person, this individual, this man who wears different clothes and says, I'm a female, it's ma'am, is potentially going to compete against biological women. Okay, so this prevents that. So you're literally telling me, yeah, it exists. Quote, 25 states since 2020 have passed laws prohibiting transgender children and teens from competing on school sports teams that match their gender identity. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. The NCAA is based in Indiana. That enables this louder message. Indiana is the most hostile of them all. This is the predictable progression of hate-based legislation. You mean science? In the era of supermajorities, there is no reason to believe that if this bill passes, it will be the end of the road for the sentiment. It will likely never be enough for Davis and her supporters. Will it end with sports? What about the workplace? What about other public and private benefits? The so-called aggrieved in arenas like this one tend to stay aggrieved. Their anger is what is politically valuable, and it requires regular feeding. This won't be the end of the assault on the transgender community's equal access to the Indiana and the America everyone else has. A relative of the original quip I heard 30 years ago is that there are politicians who are great at finding problems for every solution to. In today's political climate where grievance is the currency, these politicians are more successful than ever before. But the body of work from an era like this will not be funny at all. Holy cow. So basically, the elected officials in Indiana are working to protect our girls from men in their sport. And of course, it's making people angry. Moving on a little bit, and then we'll kind of pivot back because I'll talk about what some of these changes mean. But let me show you guys on our favorite president. Let me show you guys what's going on here. Scott Adams said, that's the guy who does the Dilbert cartoon. He's entertaining. At the risk of overdoing my amazement at how skilled Trump is at persuasion, this is just next level. Check this out, dude. This is genius. Trump invites his favorite foreign leaders to the inauguration. Historically, none are invited, by the way, and instantly turns it into an exclusive club that the others are begging to join. I mean, come on, I've run out of words. So apparently foreign leaders are desperately jockeying for invites, right? EU's von der Leyen has not received invite, right? So this person's, the Pope of Greenland will be there, just as long as there's an empty receipt reserved for Abe, whatever his name is. And this right here is it. This is what we voted for, right? This is what I voted for. I was looking for, there's one in particular that I wanted to share with you guys, but I'll just lay it out. So after the multiple attempts on the president's life, I think that this is a chess move, guys. He is actually inviting these leaders, right? And if they come, then their security detail is responsible for their safety, okay? Which means that there's going to be multiple countries' security details. At least some of them have to be competent, right? I mean, he obviously can't trust his own detail because we saw what happened, right? So I don't know if you guys have been following. Obviously, you've heard about it, but I don't know how deeply you've been following the California wildfires. Well, it turns out you can't make this up. California called for help to neighboring states for firefighters. Quote, did all those fire rigs and personnel go straight to the fire lines? No, they didn't. Where did they go? Sacramento. Why? Because California says if you send us your fire rig, it must first go to Sacramento for an inspection by Cal Fire, and only if it passes the inspection. And apparently, it's taking some time. Some of the crews have been held up. Only then does it go to Pacific Palisades and start fighting those fires in Los Angeles. And the craziness doesn't end there. Let me show you guys. Hold on. Gotta plug this in. Thought it was, but not yet. There we go. Okay. Let's get this up here. Okay, here we go.
So California called for help. They said to some of their neighboring states like Nevada and Idaho and Oregon and Washington, send us some fire rigs, send us some firefighters. We've got to get these fires out. Guess what happened? Did all those fire rigs and personnel go straight to the fire lines? No, they did not. They went to Sacramento. And why? Because California says if you send us your fire rig, it must first go to Sacramento for an inspection by Cal Fire. And only if it passes the inspection, and apparently it's taking some time, some of the crews have been held up, only then does it go to Pacific Palisades and start fighting those fires in Los Angeles. That's how crazy it is. And to make it even worse, on the way out of the state, after all those fire crews and rigs are done, they have to stop in Sacramento for a second inspection on their way out of state. So, California.
What? Oh, yeah. They're more worried about the environment from the fire trucks than they are about the environment from the massive fires. Yes. So digging in a little deeper on this, it turns out that there are multiple community notes. And what are they? Are they people saying, oh, no, that's not true. We don't have to go to Sacramento. It says, quote, this is misinformation. Our teams were not delayed. They did stop in Sacramento to rest and routine safety check to ensure a safe deployment. In other words, yes, they got to go their ass to Sacramento first. Quote, we sent 75 fire engines. Your statement about our teams not being allowed into California is false. No, but you still had to go to Sacramento. The dude literally said, we have to go to Sacramento, right? Safety checks were mandatory. Stopped in the Sacramento area to complete mandatory vehicle safety checks. And the Oregon State Fire Marshal Agency Administrator Ian Yoakum described the safety checks as a critical part of the mission. Then it says it appears the Oregon State Fire Marshal has deleted the post, stating that 75 engines were working around the clock to help their neighbors. One last thing, guys, from X. It says Mar-a-Lago locked down from miles out. Personally was stopped at the bridge to go over the intercoastal, and truck in front of me had to consent to search of his truck. As I approached inside 2 miles of Mar-a-Lago, massive presence of local and federal law enforcement. Concrete barriers put up a half-mile away from MAL. Roads but down completely. No one is allowed to get close. Unsure if this time his president is on the move or if the now standard procedure. This guy says, I pulled over to ask a deputy Palm Beach County sheriff why there was a lockdown around Mar-a-Lago. He said, quote, it's been like that for 4 years now. I said, no, I was there a couple months ago and it has not been like that. He and his counterpart then stare at me and say nothing. Obviously not a good answer. Grammar's almost bad, talk to text, etc. Yeah. So it's getting interesting, ladies and gentlemen, as far as talking about just local. As I mentioned, the county courthouse here in LaPorte, I'm just going to do a separate video on that. But first, I'm going to give them one more opportunity to fix it. I'm going to actually go to the meetings, and I'm going to tell them again about this and ask, is this in motion? Is someone actually fixing this? I don't expect a real response, but we'll see. So obviously you guys are familiar with all the changes that have happened due to the election. As far as at the county level, we had a little bit of a shakeup, right? We had a little shakeup at the county council level. Mike Rosenbaum is no longer on the council, and the caucus was held to replace him. Jim Pressel III won that caucus and is now on the county council. Well, there's lots of Facebook stuff, but I do know that there were multiple people that were replaced as far as on boards, right? There were many board members that were replaced. Now, the rumors are that these were Republicans and they were replaced with Democrats. I don't know that. I don't know their history. I don't even know who the board members were changed. That's just what I'm seeing. Would highly recommend that you guys look into it yourselves. Find out. I have not had a chance to review the meeting and look into these people. Haven't had the chance yet. I got other stuff going on as far as real life goes. The other thing is that the council, Rich Mrozinski is out and Steve Hollifield is in. Now, a lot of people had a lot of hope about Steve Hollifield, that he would come in and be a voice of reason and at least, if nothing else, be a good sounding board or a unbiased third person on the council, or commission, in order to kind of alleviate some of the friction between liberty-minded Joe Haney and Connie Grammarosa. That's not what happened. What happened was Steve Hollifield was elected and immediately elected Connie Grammarosa to commission president, followed shortly by appointing her husband, Rich Grammarosa, to the travel board or something. Now, as I recall, Mr. Hollifield's stance on people appointing family members to various boards, he was wholeheartedly against it before he was elected. Now, it seems like he is a whipping boy at best and a dog at worst. We shall see. We're going to be keeping a close eye on him. You guys can expect more videos about meetings coming up, the various councils and all of that. I don't know how many I'm going to be able to dig into, but I'll do what I can. I got some other stuff going on here, but definitely going to try to keep you guys up to date. What do you think? Let's talk about these bills. The township thing, I don't know, man. I don't know enough about townships, but I will say the township trustees are elected directly by we the people. And if you don't believe in elections, then how did you get to where you are to be able to take away other positions? Now, that said, I don't know. I don't know how the townships, if it's a positive, if it's a negative, if things do need to change. I've looked into it a little bit. I know that Center Township's great. I know that Michigan Township's not so great. So my question, though, is how is this going to affect the services that the township is supposed to provide, and in many cases does an excellent job in doing so? How is this going to affect the fire coverage? How is this going to affect, because let's face it, I have zero faith in our county government at this point, none whatsoever. Now, from the county council, one of the good things I'd say that came about is that Adam Karanka was elected president of the council. Now, I've had my issues with the way that Karanka has voted in the past, but I do believe that he's probably the best choice on the council currently, with the exception of Justin Keel. I'm just going to say it, man. Justin's awesome, dude. He has always, in my opinion, voted the way that I believe true liberty-minded people, true Republicans vote. He's new, though, so they're not going to make him president. Karanka hasn't been there that long either. I don't know. But out of the potential options, Karanka is about the best we can do. So we'll see how he does. I have absolute, the dude's super smart, man. Adam's really smart. I like him as a person. I think that sometimes he gets, I won't say bullied, but advised incorrectly. We'll have to see. I hope that he listens to the constituents. And ladies and gentlemen, if you live in LaPorte County, they took away Zoom from the commissioner meetings. Why? Because Connie and Steve didn't want it. That's why. So why do you think that is? I'm not going to posit anything. Why would a commission take away the ability for the public who can't come to meetings to comment? Why do you think that is? Allegedly, it was due to financial reasons. And of course, Courtroom Connie is quoting these insane figures, which it's like $7,000 a year or something, which Joe Haney, Commissioner Haney, has come out and said that's not accurate. $7,000 is for the entire county. It's for all of the various boards, divisions, county council, all of this together. So realistically, the commissioner's portion of that is probably a couple $100, which in my opinion is very, very little given all the BS that we waste money on. So no more Zoom. Now you can still watch the meeting afterwards on Alco, right? But YouTube, etc. But you cannot attend the meeting via Zoom anymore. Interesting. That was at the same meeting where Connie's husband was appointed. And by the way, Joe Haney, again, the only liberty-minded commissioner that we have, was only given one board appointment. One. So much for equal representation, right? Hollifield is a joke. He's an absolute joke. So that's it. You guys make up your own mind. By all means, watch the commission meetings. I'm going to be covering them as much as I can moving forward. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you have a good evening. What do you guys think? Are we in for a wild ride? Is it going to be an interesting 2025? I believe so. Not only at the national level, but also here in LaPorte County. I think it's going to be wild. I think we are in for a whole lot of very, very interesting things. Hope you have a good evening. I'll see you again real soon. God bless you. God bless Indiana. And God bless the United States of America. Hope you have a great evening. Good night.
If you'd like to support the show, please visit our Patreon at patreon.com/Deion's Daily Dose. This has been Deion's Daily Dose, hosted by Deion Bergeron. Executive producers, Sean Holgram and Michael Beebe. Copyright 2024. Deion's Daily Dose, all rights reserved.